A transatlantic dash. An insider's review. Last to launch, but have the French pulled off a masterstroke? And we find out the latest about this pocket rocket. Plus, plenty in Docktalk. But first, 2024 is a big year for the IMOCA fleet. On the 10th of November, 40 boats will set off on the biggest and most famous solo round-the-world race of them all, the Vendée Globe. Just to get to the start line is an achievement, and among the key milestones in the build-up this year are 2 transatlantic races, the first of which was the Transat CIC from Orient on the west coast of France to New York. Not only is the 3,500 mile race a crucial test for all the teams as they prepare for the big one in November, but this is a tough way to cross the Atlantic, taking the fleet into the oncoming weather systems.
The Transat is a very important race for us. It's very historically important, even though it's not starting from the UK anymore and it's now starting from Orient, but it's still the same very northern Atlantic route. So very tricky, lots of headwinds, lots of storms, and the ice coming down from the north as well. The Gulf Stream, everything is complicated to get to the US. So it makes for a very rough transatlantic. Historically, it's been very tough with lots of breakages on the boats. Hopefully, it'll be a bit more nicer this time. But it's a good preparation for the Vendée Globe.
But for some, the Transat was more than just a race. Offshore rock star Charlie Dallin was among those who still had to qualify for the Vendée Globe. Whatever happened, he had to finish this race.
J'ai pas pu participer aux 2 transats de fin d'année, ni Jacques Vabre, ni retour à la base. Donc voilà, on a 2 transats de moins que la grande majorité de la flotte. Donc cette Transat CIC et la Vendée Warm-Up à suivre, c'est des courses qui sont très importantes pour nous. Déjà d'un point de vue qualificatif, on n'est pas encore qualifié au Vendée Globe. Il faut absolument que je termine l'une de ces 2 courses, donc idéalement la Transat CIC à moins de 150% du temps du premier. C'est vrai que c'est un peu contrariant de devoir aborder une course si réputée, si légendaire, avec une épée de Damoclès au-dessus de la tête de qualification pour le Vendée Globe, mais c'est comme ça.
Sam Davies had already qualified, leaving her to focus on the conditions ahead, but it still didn't sound very easy.
It's still the North Atlantic, it's spring, and we're going to see kind of the traditional conditions for this east-west transat. So quite quickly we're going to end up in a low pressure system and have a cold front to cross. So we're going to see a wind building, sea state building, some rain, lots of rain probably, strong winds, the front, lots of sail changes. And then later on in the week, before the halfway point, we've got a section where we're going to have some really strong northerly winds. The winds are going to be coming right from the Arctic. It's going to be really cold and really dense with some big squalls. And so that's the kind of the gangster conditions we're going to see, and the point that I'm kind of being quite vigilant about.
To understand more about this race and what it means, I hooked up with 2023 IMOCA Champion and familiar face on Planet Sail, Sam Goodchild. And I started by asking him why he didn't do the race.
So we looked at the year as a whole, bearing in mind our aim is to be on top form the 10th of November for the start of the Vendée Globe. And we looked at a short winter refit coming out of the shed early, looked at 2 back-to-back single-handed transats, a quick summer refit, and then back into a packed September, October before the start. And we said it looks a little bit over the top for a year before Vendée Globe, and so we kind of need to try and unload it, not just for us personally, but even the team, the technical team, the boat, everything else. Everything takes time, and it just seemed reasonable to try and find a way of unloading the program. So we chose to not do this transat, which was meant to be an upwind transat. It wasn't in the end, but anyway, we chose not to do the east-west transat and focus more on the west-east transat, which left us a bit more time coming out of the shed and getting things all going and ready to go. And it meant the shore team aren't going to spend 3 weeks in New York. It meant they didn't have 2 weeks to prepare the boat for a single-handed transat out the back of a winter refit. It just gives a bit more breathing space to everyone, and hopefully mean in November we'll be a bit less burnt out.
I guess that's easy for us on the outside to forget just how much effort goes into keeping the show on the road with these boats. And I guess the other thing is that the risk of breaking gear, although I suppose it's a fine line to tread, isn't it? Because you want to test it, but you don't want to break it to the point that it's going to put your whole campaign backwards.
Yeah, for sure. There's that element. I mean, we're much more in there. It's better to break it now than break it in 6 months' time theory. But it's just, even if you don't break it, it's still kind of time consuming. So it's just trying to find the right balance. Yeah.
Mm. Good. Well, it was a fascinating race, and I'm sure you would have been watching it really closely. Give us your be great to hear your sort of overview on what happened, and kick off with the start, because there was sort of drama with some of the rock stars right from the start.
Yeah, I watched the actual start on my kite surfer, so that was quite fun on a Sunday out from Lorient. But anyway, it was good fun. It was nice conditions, and I mean, Charlie Dallin got off to a pretty fast and furious start, as everyone imagined, even if he said he wasn't going to. And then yeah, fairly quickly, I guess the biggest casualty was Jeremy Bay, who had to turn around with Sheahan, who broke his structural forestay and almost lost the rig, from what I can understand, and fortunately didn't, because he had his inner stay up. And one of the questions we asked ourselves last year is, does the inner stay save the rig if the structural one breaks? And it was pretty scary, but it's possible. That's the answer by the sounds of it. Then I guess the other interesting thing was, I mean, the usual contenders who we expected to be at the front were pretty quickly up front.
The first 24 hours saw the fleet head northwest, with Charlie Dallin, Johan Risham and Paul Mayer leading the charge. But after 4 days, the leaderboard was starting to change shape. Johan Risham had taken the lead, while Sam Davies had pulled up into third, and it was clear that the ride had been a rough one.
Hello à tous. On est dans le front. Première. Et ça va assez vite, du coup ça tape fort.
300 miles behind Davies, Clarisse Kremer was faced with a harsh reminder of how quickly fortunes can change.
Voilà, je suis allée faire un check du bateau comme on fait après quelques jours en mer, surtout après un front pareil et une mer aussi forte. Et bah, je voulais le faire ce matin à la base et on avançait encore assez vite et du coup j'ai voulu attendre cet après, mais c'était la mauvaise surprise ce check parce que j'ai une cloison qui a explosé. La deuxième cloison en partant de l'avant, elle est complètement fissurée de part et d'autre. Elle bouge, il y a des toutes petites voies d'eau. Donc ça a vraiment pas une bonne gueule quoi, mon bateau il est tout mou.
I mean, it'd be interesting to know why it broke and what was the reason behind it. A lot of the Verdier boats have had some structure put into them. The winter just gone around the same zone. If it would avoid that problem, I have enough information to know that. But I mean, after that bulkhead that broke, we've got basically a sister ship of that boat, or near enough. And after that bulkhead that broke, we've added a second bulkhead, or a half bulkhead, about 50 centimeters away. So you hope that would help a bit. And yes, and I think the L'Occitane will add that in this winter or this summer, if I understand rightly. So yeah, it's something we follow closely, and I think they'll normally, on structural issues like that, with so many boats with the same structural engineer, there's a lot of communication and sharing to make sure that we don't all end up in the same boat. So let them finish their race and see what happens, and then we'll probably have a few conversations to see whether it's something we need to do something about, or whether there was an exceptional circumstance that meant it's not the same for all the other Verdier boats.
It certainly seemed, from looking at some of the onboard footage, that the skippers, not just Clarisse, but some of the others, Boris and Sam, Davies, and some of the others were sending back. The motion at times was just horrendous.
Hi guys, going full speed, lots of wind, big waves, everything at once. Makes it quite shaky. I have to force myself to eat something. I might spill it all over the place.
I think when he got to New York, he's saying, this is the first time that I haven't had to wear my noise-cancelling headphones. It does seem pretty brutal life on board these boats. Does it feel like it's stepped up over the last couple of years?
The human limit is very much a limiting factor. I think one of the reasons we're breaking the boats is because we're getting more and more used to it, so we're pushing them harder and harder. So 5 years ago when it was slamming that hard, you think this is crazy, I need to slow down, otherwise I'm going to break something, and then little by little you push a little bit more and you find that actually it's uncomfortable that it goes fast. And it's now got to the stage where the new boats coming out, so Boris Herman's probably the furthest one down that line. They've put comfort as a fairly large factor of design, because they're saying if we neglige comfort, we can have a fast boat, but you're not going to be able to go fast for very long. Our Kia Paprix, Antoine Coche boat and Boris Herman VPLP boat were designed to be more comfortable.
Just as predicted, the second week of the race saw the weather change gear.
Pas beaucoup de vent. Ce matin, en plus il fait froid, humide, gris. C'est pas loin de cyclone comme chez nous. Et j'ai eu 2 heures avec vraiment pas de vent.
Hi everyone. It has been a week now that we left from Brittany, from Lorient, last Sunday. So a weekend. Today is Monday. Now we're here, almost at the finish. And here we had some light winds, and then this section was pretty windy. And since here we are in a zone where the hot Gulf Stream, which is this corridor, this black boundaries here, this is the Gulf Stream, is in this zone, and then cold water comes down from here. That's mixing here and created some interesting sea state the last days. We're almost finished and enjoying this calm sailing. For the first time I have no headphones, no noise cancellation headphones. I can speak to you like this. You will, most of the time you wouldn't be able to hear me, or I couldn't hold the camera still or anything. Big zone here to protect the whales. So that was the zone that is huge. It went here almost all to Greenland, over Newfoundland, Nova Scotia. And this, we were going a little bit along the edge. And now we have this light wind here to the finish. Finish line is 100 miles out of New York, and then we need to stay in this corridor again for expecting marine life, I guess.
After 8 days at sea and over 3,000 miles, just 6 hours separated the 3 front runners, as Jan Risham took the win on our Kia Paprec, followed by Boris Herman on Malizia's Sea Explorer, with Sam Davies' Initiative Kerr taking 3rd.
Seeing the level of the fleet, it's something that's almost unachievable, and the level of preparation that we need, and the reliability with the boats. You know, it's very easy to break stuff and to be out of the game, and I think we have a few examples in the fleet. It's the coming in from the north of that low pressure and putting the jibe in the right place. I think outside of the problems that Charlie had, that set me up well for the rest of the downwind sailing, and even then it was still downwind sailing. So I think Boris, Sam, and I are faster than him in those conditions. We've got boats that are better suited to heavy weather sailing.
A week like this, that gives a good sense of what's to come the next winter, and it was a really intense race with strong conditions, and seeing the boat and myself coming out like this is it's a great pleasure.
It went too quickly, almost too quickly, because it's over. It's only just begun, so that's a bit sad. But it's pretty cool to go so fast across the Atlantic, and a really good test for the boat as well in the Vendée Globe year. And for me, that was the big thing, was to make it across. Flooring it or sending it as fast as I could all the way to really test the boat for the Vendée Globe, and I figured that if I could make it across the North Atlantic like that, then we're ready for anything.
While all three are highly accomplished offshore skippers, this was possibly not the result that the pundits had expected before the start. So what does this mean for the Vendée Globe, and who should we be watching? Stay with us for part 2 as Sam Goodchild gives us his views. The French Orient Express racing team were the last to register their challenge for the 37th America's Cup. They were the last to launch their AC75 too. Plus, they have the least experienced Cup team, especially when it comes to the modern foiling AC75s. Until now, they've never had one. 3 factors that you might think puts them at an instant disadvantage. But as they demonstrated in Villanova last year at the first America's Cup preliminary regatta, give them an inch and a dollop of good luck and they'll deliver a win. In fact, at their first AC event they ended up on the podium. They've done the same in Sail GP, where over the last year or so they've been delivering some impressive results. However, the game has now stepped up. The focus has shifted to boats that are almost twice the size, 3 times the weight, significantly more powerful, and have double the number of crew. We're talking Formula 3 to Formula 1. But the boat that the French have just revealed has one big advantage. It's from the Kiwi drawing board, and it will be a bold person that will bet against that. But even then, it's not quite that simple. So I've come to their base in Barcelona to find out why. I started with a look at their new boat at the official christening. If you've been following the launch of the other Cup AC75s, you'll see straight away that the French team's boat looks just like that of the Kiwis. So what exactly have the French bought, and how did it work? Bruno Dubois explained.
When we started, because we were late, we talked with Stefan and the team, see if we could have a design package from a team, and we talked to Team New Zealand, and the first idea was to have maybe the design of the 2.5, the boat won last time, but a bit modified, and after a while of talking to them, we realized that it was sort of a waste of money to do that, because there was no point. So it was better to probably spend a little bit more, but get the same design as they have, like exactly the same generation of design.
And what does that extend to? Is that just the hull? Is it?
No, it's pretty much everything. From mast to the bottom of the foil, and including the sails and everything. But one thing we for sure, both teams, because as per the protocol, when we the first boat team will launch this boat, after that it's over, we cannot communicate. So we are not clients anymore, because we are competitors now. And so they will develop probably their own thing, we'll develop things, but we're going to spend most of the time to understand the process behind their design and try to understand it. And if we succeed on that, then after that you can start developing. But we have a few months to understand properly what they've done.
And does that include, when you talk about the design, does that include the systems on board the boat? And
pretty much everything to work on a boat, yeah.
So you get this design and all the complex designs and detailed designs with it, and then you have to go off and go and build it, find out where to...
Yeah, and order the material, the same place as they do, and
right.
So
it's a bit like buying an Airfix kit, but it's only got the paper instructions
and then
in there.
Try to put everything together. And when we built the boat, it was good because we had the relationship with them once a week to talk about the way to do it, and to make sure we understood what we had, but now it's if we have a problem, we have to solve our problem ourselves, which is good, in fact, because it forces us to understand better the system.
How similar is, I know you said it's the same package, but by the time both boats get on the water, will they look the same on the outside and then the real differences be on the inside, the bit we can't see, or are there big differences in there?
I would think that I would not be surprised, and that's pure speculation, okay? I would say that probably they work on their foil a little bit longer than us, because we have to have them. They were sailing 3 weeks or 2 weeks in New Zealand with their legacy foil, and I don't know what the foil they're gonna get. we already built our foil before them, so they will probably have something different, but maybe not. I have no idea about that. But for the rest, we had to produce, you have to produce sails, you have to produce a boat, you have to produce a rudder, to produce a mast. We took the opportunity, for example, at Southern Spar, they had 2 molds, and they used 1 mold for Team New Zealand, 1 mold for us, and built a 2 mast in the same time. For me, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah, it was. I did 2 times the America's Cup, and people forgot, but in 2003, we bought 2 old boats from Team New Zealand and a design package. And at that time, Grant was about to take over Team New Zealand after the, let's say, disastrous campaign of 2003. And we started basically at the same time in the America's Cup, if you want. So I think it created also a relationship. I think we are 2 teams funded by sponsors, and we have the same philosophy. And to be honest, Team New Zealand is clearly a benchmark for us. And yeah, I think it was quite logical that coming back into the America's Cup, I wanted to be sure we could be competitive. And being the last entrant, it was almost impossible to design a complete boat from scratch in France, even though the talent is there, the wish is there, the industry is there, and we have a lot of good people. But when we came in, all the guys who had done the last America's Cup were gone in the different teams.
Some of the teams, well, in fact, quite a few of the teams that I've spoken to here, one of the things that comes across quite strongly is, or clearly, is that to design the AC-75, they were having to make key decisions on the boat very, very early on in order to actually, almost with very little experience at all. But it strikes me that that's where you've got a big advantage, because Team New Zealand made those decisions.
Yeah, but we had a big decision to take at one moment, say 2.5 design or 3 design, number 3 or 2.5. With the 2.5, we would be sailing probably before Alinghi, probably in March. The boat that they developed and they sailed last summer here, we could have taken that design and start very early and get everything ready probably for March, and then sailing on a big boat. We decided to go for the latest of the latest. That means that the latest of the latest, because Team New Zealand is sailing later, we have the design later, and we end up be the last boat to launch and be the last boat to train, compared to Alinghi, who was been sailing on their boat already 2 months, April and May. So that's the choice, and we kept sailing on the AC40. We developed it and changed it for the LAQ, so we have the system and then the same control system.
To me, Team New Zealand in the last 30 years is the benchmark of a professional team able to compete in different competitions, and that's what we want to achieve. For several reasons, in 2007 we were about to do that, but the America's Cup failed, and it was a big problem, and we disappeared, let's say it this way. But I think, we have the same vision of having a compact team, trying to be smart in the decisions we make. For us, we don't invest in a huge base and spending a lot of money there if we cannot spend it in the boat. So we have to make choices because, lacking of money is making you smarter, I think.
Why would Team New Zealand, why would the Defender want to sell you their latest design, or at least a top design, when you may end up facing them in the America's Cup?
First of all, it's not a gift, okay? It's a financial agreement. So it's a good cash of, pile of cash coming from us. Way less than having a design team, by the way, way less. And then after that, for them, it's another team. They're helping another team to come in, which I know in Grant Dalton and Kevin Showbridge, that's what they thought also, having another team in could be very good. Then you can speculate the reason behind that, but I do not speculate. I think they help us by doing that. They know that our sailors are not that bad, because we're sailing against them all the time, every month on SailGP. So I think it's for us, it was the only reason why we went to this cup is because we had the opportunity to do that. And I think the third one is that they want to have a legacy. They want to also control, and if imagine, our team is doing well. It's not only about the sailors. It's about their design package, about the design process, and they're doing other things, Team New Zealand, than just this America's Cup. They do the land yacht, they do the hydrogen boat, they do a lot of things. So, which is a very powerful design group, and they want to showcase that around the world. And through our team, I think it's a good idea for business-wise. I think it is smart.
So given that they're a young, relatively inexperienced team, what's their goal?
We believe that if we are able to pass the first cut of the round robins, everything is possible, and why not winning it? At least that's the goal of the team, to be at 120% ready, and if the boat is able to compete with the others, we don't feel that we have any less chance than the others to win.
I would say that if us right now we would have double of the budget that we have now, we would be lost, because it means that each department will come with 10 ideas that you have to validate, that you have to test, that you have to budget, and then you arrive at the start of the race and then you're over. This is the 20 years of experience. This is where they are. I think the fact that every single decision that we have to take is rationalized, and we don't have time or money or people or to waste. So that's the reason why I said when we have the design package now, we're going to try to understand the design package. If we understand it at 90%, I think we'll be dangerous on the race course. That's our objective. The rest, the development, and find out if we need a little bit winglet there or a little tail there, it's not for us now.
They might be the smallest team, the last to launch, and with the biggest hill to climb to play catch-up, but the French approach is a very interesting one indeed. Plus, it's clear that they see this as just the beginning. Now, we hear that a lot in the Cup, and there are all kinds of reasons why these ideals get derailed. But there's something about this team and the way that they're set up that makes me think they're going to be very interesting to watch, both come the racing and afterwards. A week later, and the big moment had come, as the newest team had their first ever sail of an AC-75. After a long and at times testing day, skipper Quentin Delapierre described what it was like.
Good first step for the 75. We achieved a long day, setting the sails, and after that going through the first falling tack, the first falling straight line also. So yeah, a really good feeling in the team, and I think we push quite hard because the level of fatigue is quite high actually, but yeah, it's a good day for the team. Yeah, it's completely different boat. The 75 is way more complex. You've got way more logic on board, and you have also cyclists with the sailors. We have to manage the energy that the cyclists can give to us, and it's completely different way of sailing. And also, I mean, the 75 is way faster, and we just love it. I'm really impressed about what the guys achieve, to be honest. We are a small team, quite new team, but yeah, they were able to launch the 75. A bit of rush every time, because you just build the boat quite late, and you also manage to build a team with a new experience inside. So yeah, really impressed of what the guys achieved today, and yeah, looking forward for more sailing time.
Appearances are always important, and with Raikkonen Pugh and Nauta Design involved, the Advanced Yachts 80 was always going to be a stunning looking boat inside and out. But the all-Italian 80-footer is more than this, because she's a good example of how less obvious details can have the biggest effect. The high form stability, along with a 3.5 metre fin and bulb keel, allows a powerful yet manageable sail plan. The carbon rig minimises pitching and reduces heel, which contribute to an easily driven performance cruiser with a comfortable motion. Her hull is infused epoxy sandwich with a full carbon deck, including carbon structural members in key areas. This keeps the weight down, which minimises the loads, which in turn makes her easier to handle. This means she can be run by a small crew, which leads to lower running costs. In addition, accommodating fewer crew maximises the available space for the owner, and these are just the starting points for an impressive 80-footer. Doyle Sails continue to hire some of the top sailors in the Grand Prix scene. One of the most recent signings is Victor Marino. His CV includes America's Cup campaigns and 10 world titles, from performance dinghies to Farr 40s and maxis. His most recent victory was in the 52 Super Series on board Platoon. He was also a key member of the team aboard the Austrian-flagged Stella Maris that won the Club Swan 50 European Championships in Menorca. Victor grew up in Vigo in the Galicia region, starting in an optimist at 6 years old, and he's spent his life afloat. And while he freely admits that he's never worked as a sailmaker, he's always been a trimmer. From Platoon to the Maxi Cannonball and the 6-metre Momo, his experience is as wide as it is deep, which is what makes him a special signing for Doyle. A bigger engine needs bigger blade surfaces on the propeller. Like larger tyres on a bigger, more powerful car, it makes sense. But big props also mean big drag. So when the first Gori folding prop emerged in the mid-1970s, it changed the world. The Danish company was born out of a collaboration with the Danish Maritime Institute. The Bang & Olufsen designer David Lewis was also involved. Today, as the company approaches its 50th anniversary, what stands out is how little has changed, including their lead in the market. New product launches are rare, and yet when their props are tested, they come out on top time after time, which goes to explain why they're on such a wide range of craft, from around the Cannes to around the world, along with many of the top performance cruisers. Sometimes the best ideas and designs are right from the start. The Transat CIC had been hard for all and a qualifier for some of those aiming at the Vendée Globe. But this race was also being studied closely as a form guide. Sam Goodchild was one of those watching. What did he think about the results, and who are the key runners and riders for the big one in November?
If you look at the hull shapes for sure, the Antoine Coche boat, which we've already seen with 4 people, they're obviously quick in a sea state. Melizier he's very public about the fact that's what he designed his boat around, and Initiative Kerr as well. So yeah, it's probably not any coincidence. The big question mark is what happened to Charlie Dallain Massif. He had a few technical issues. He's been a little. I haven't looked into all the details, but he's been not very upfront in saying how much that impacted his performance, which is fine. That's how he does things, but. So it's hard to know exactly how much he lost from the fact that the sea state was up and he has a boat which has got a little less rocker and is a bit more powerful, and how much he lost from managing pilot issues, and his rudder was a little bit broken, but apparently he didn't know about that until the finish. So it's hard to know exactly what the impact was, but for sure to see these 3 boats on the podium is not a massive surprise in the sea states we saw.
It seemed like such a quick trip across the Atlantic. What would you say was the key turning point there? Was it getting through that big front and all the breeze? I think it was like 2 or 3 days into the event.
Yes, I guess where the winners were decided were the second half of the race, or the podium was decided anyway, and it was in that big breeze, downwind weather out the back, and it was a fairly quick race. It wasn't upwind at all. It was pretty much mostly reaching and downwind. What wasn't different, though, is that when you're going against the weather systems, where the depression's going west-east from New York to the Europe, you're going against weather depression, so the what do you want to call it, the meeting speed is quite high, so obviously you're going through changes very quickly. You're not really on the same sail for much more than 12 hours, and then you're changing onto another one and change onto another one. So, I mean, that's what's difficult about this Transat. Even if it's not upwind, it's just everything comes at you quickly, and you're going at it quickly, so all the changes come at you quick, as opposed to, imagine a North Atlantic record as you sit on a low and you stay in the same low until the finish. It's quite easy, but yeah, so going up against the weather is obviously a lot harder. and by the North Atlantic, the lows pick up pretty quick with the Grand Banks. I think they had a lot of fog and bad weather. There was a few boats that hit things. So yeah, it's not an easy course for sure.
Is it good training for the Vendée Globe, given that most of the way around the world you are, as you say, sitting on, or as you imply, sitting on a weather front, and it's coming at you much slower? Is this transatlantic useful, invaluable training for what might come later on, or is it a bit of a nuisance and a risk?
The reality is yes, because obviously changing sails and changing modes and learning how to use your sails out of range is always going to be useful, which is what happens when the changes come at you quickly. So it's never going to be a waste of time. But I mean, there is also a reason we chose to do the second Transat, not the first one, and that's because we think the second one's typically a bit more adapted to what we're preparing for, which is the Vendée Globe. So we'll see what the weather's like on the race back, because it could be different, but I mean, that's why we chose to do that race back. So there's benefits of learning your boat, learning how to change quickly, and learning how to change gears and change modes, and maybe find compromises a bit. And then there's a disadvantage of you don't have time to sit in and test things a bit more.
So how does he think the fleet now looks 6 months ahead of the Vendée Globe?
I mean, for my personal opinion, is there's 4 favourites which are fairly kind of ticked all the boxes to be as ready as you can be. That's Tom Orient with Vulnerable, which is my stable boat, if you like. There's Arkia Paprick that just won this one. There's Sheahan that broke on this race and had to turn around. And there's Massif that spent 3/4 of this race at the front. And they're the favourites with boat experience, team, kind of the whole combination there. For me, that's the top favourites. And then behind that, there's probably a group of 10 odd boats, of which I think it's safe to say I'm part of, who are basically ready to make the best of any mistakes or any problems of those top 4, whether that's a breakage, whether that's a technical issue, whether that's a whatever, but ready to make the best out of, or a navigation issue, we're ready to make the best out of them. So in that group, you definitely put Malaysia and Sam, who finished on the podium. You put Metrikok, who won the last Vendée. Going into listing them, they're dangerous because there's quite a few of them. But basically, it's a group of 10 odd boats which are maybe missing an element to be perfect or be ready to win, but are definitely ready to make the best of any sort of error or of those top 4, and be ready to basically get on the podium or create an upset if we're given the opportunity.
And are we well past the stage of considering the non-foilers? There will still be some non-foilers in the Vendée Globe, but the days of them being serious contenders for the front, are they gone?
My personal opinion is yes. Jean Le Cam and Eric Benoit have built brand new daggerboard boats, thinking that they, on a Vendée Globe course and going around the world where you're not sailing 100% of polars the whole time, that they've got a chance. We haven't seen that proven yet, but Jean Le Cam's been here for a lot longer than I am, so I'm not going to say that he's wrong. But at the moment, the proof hasn't been shown yet.
Mm. Now, finally, looking ahead, 6 months to go, roughly speaking, until the start of the Vendée Globe, what happens between, I mean, not just for you, but just overall, what is the focus for the fleet? How do you get from here to the start?
So the next big milestone is most of the fleet are doing this Transat home. So the 29th of May, we're leaving from New York back to France. And that's kind of the last real lineup with all the other boats. There's the Trophy Azimut in September. That's more of a sponsor event, and there's a 48-hour offshore with a media man on board, and it's a bit more sprint-like. This is the last time I'm going to spend a week at sea on the boats before the Vendée. I think all the major changes have been done now. Anything from now on will almost definitely be just reliability and making sure all the systems work, nothing's going to break, and there's no surprises. And there'll be probably a summer refit for everybody. And it's just making sure you get into that, all the right priorities for the Vendée Globe. So, I mean, for us, it's definitely looking at reliability. What are we going to change? What are we not going to change? Because we know it works, so don't change it, and just keep things simple and make sure by the time we get to November, we're as confident as possible in the boat and all the systems.
We know that we've certainly discovered over the last couple of years that selection and qualification for the Vendée Globe is a very complex process indeed, or at least it looks like that from the outside. But in simple terms, has everybody that needs, all the top dogs, Have they all qualified, or are there still a few that need to qualify for the Vendée Globe?
So all the top boats are, yeah, like you say, it's fairly complicated. At the moment, all the top boats are fairly safe. I think the last remaining factor is Tom Orient needs to take the start of the Transat, and myself as well. 8 or 9 boats that didn't do the Transat there, so you have to take the start of a single-handed Transat in 2024. So as soon as we cross the start line, we're qualified.
Okay.
And then where it gets a little bit complicated is more on the lower end of this, the number of miles raced and that side of things. If there's too many boats qualified, are they going to leave someone on the dock, basically? So at the moment, there's 42 serious teams aiming to the Vendée Globe, and they've announced there's 40 spots. So.
Right. Pressure starts well before the start, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So that should all be cleared up by the 2nd of July. There'll be a final entry list, and the people left out or not left out will know where they stand, and we can all go from there, basically.
Unfortunately, during the production of this piece, Sam was dismasted in the race back across the Atlantic. Most importantly, he was okay, but this was a brutal reminder of just how easily any campaign, no matter how well organised, can get derailed. We'll be covering the New York Vendée in a future episode, as we look at how the return match might have reshuffled the Vendée Globe form guide. Combining performance with comfort in a blue water cruiser is easily said but hard to achieve. But Pegasus Yachts believe that their 50-footer is evidence that high performance can be achieved aboard a blue water cruiser. The unladen displacement of just 12 tonnes is the first clue, but the layout and specification points to the approach that the company has taken. The Pegasus 50 has a huge yet well-protected aft cockpit, where it's easy to see the influence of the IMOCA and Class 40 styles. A carbon mast, high-quality sails and top electronics, along with an emphasis on reliability and a high degree of redundancy, are among several examples of the key focal points during development. The result, they believe, is a new style of global cruiser where performance and comfort are combined. From the outside, it's just a black box, but according to B&G, the inner workings of the Hercules WTP takes their latest sailing processor onto another level. The Hercules WTP is aimed at the top end of the market, from TP52s to super yachts, and allows crews to look at very specific data. For example, while you may not have thought it necessary to know how much your mast twists or exactly how much rake you're carrying, to a TP52 crew it can be crucial. So too is knowing the precise position of a hydraulic ram on a super yacht, or the exact position of a foil on an IMOCA. And it's not just about displaying a single data stream of numbers either. From feeding data into more complex calculations to displaying safe operating limits graphically, the ability to create custom systems on site looks set to create a new generation of instrumentation. Last year we took a look at an interesting new 30-footer that was aiming to provide a new approach to single and double-handed racing for inshore and offshore. But this is also a 30-footer that's been designed to appeal to those looking to sail fully crewed, with just 4. Back then, the Farr X2 was being built in Thailand, but now the production has moved to Portugal. And now that the first of the new boats has arrived on our doorstep in Hamble, we thought we'd pop along to take a look at what the new boat is like. Brett Perry is the man behind the Farr X2 project. First of all, give us a quick overview of why this boat is important, because this marks a step change for you, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This is, well, it's the first boat out of Nelo in Portugal, famous for all their infusion techniques in the kayak industry. Nelo being the leading manufacturer of kayaks and surf skis on the planet, and they've stepped into bigger boats. They've been doing dragons, they do all the Melges 14s and 15s, and they were looking for a race boat that was all fiberglass or a glass infused boat, and being infusion specialists, exactly what we were looking for, with the change of builders coming from Asia to Europe. Essentially to be closer to the market, and they've just done a wonderful job. This one has come out of the factory after about the best part of 18 months of work to get to this stage.
Right.
You know, the first build is always it's always a bit of a tough one, but they're nailing it now. They're building currently, this is number 6, and they're building number 7 at the moment, and so far, basically 15 working days, they've gone from gel coat to bulkheads in. So we're talking about potentially, getting the build production times down to, I'm hoping within, 8 weeks.
Excellent.
Which is exactly what we need.
Yeah. What's changed on this boat from last time we saw it?
Well, I mean, basically, probably the biggest thing is infusion, and the technique that they use down in Nello is just a step above. It's consistent, and we can just set it up, pump it through, job done. So that's probably the biggest thing.
And you're going to have some more here this year?
We're going to have another one here probably in the next, I would say, 6 weeks. We'll have number 7 here. Number 8 is going to New Zealand, sold. Number 9 at this stage has got a deposit down. It's coming here, so we're going to have a really good end of the season. But next season's looking really positive.
Great. Well, that's 2 of my holidays sorted.
Yeah.
UK here, then off to New Zealand to go and just test it again.
Yeah, well, that's it. Bay of Islands Raceway.
What could possibly go wrong with that?
Nothing.
Brilliant. Well, I really look forward to that. I think what we'll do is we'll come back, because you're going to put the rig in a minute. We'll come back and we'll have a little look at it once the rig is in.
Yep.
Which will actually be in effect tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah, that's right. I mean, the boat's just touched the water for the first time ever, so it's exciting, and we'll get the rig in tomorrow and we'll have another chat.
Nice. See you then.
All right.
Well, Brett, rig's in. This boat's looking pretty nice, pretty sorted. It must be.
It's always a good thing to get the rig in. Obviously, new builders, new sort of concept, if you like, of what we're trying to achieve with the boat. And when the rig all fits, it's good.
Nothing's changed in the sail plan,
nothing has changed. The design is exactly the same. Same tools, everything. It's just all the little things.
So she's looking pretty good, nice and polished up and all ready to go. But I mean, I guess for those that sort of saw the previous boat here, they'd look at it and go, well, yeah, okay, talk me through the differences. So talk me through the differences.
Yeah, look, it's obviously we're talking about minute percentages now. What we learnt from the first 5 boats, was a couple of changes here with the rudders. We've already discussed that in one of your last episodes, but we've gone a step further. We've gone carbon traveller bar, we've gone carbon tiller. We've really worked hard on the additions to the life raft locker, and the aft cover here is all done as light as possible. So we've gained, a kilo here, kilo there adds up, and we're floating where we want to be floating. We think we've got the boat exactly where we want to be from our design.
And I guess the biggest change really has been the construction, isn't it? And been taking it to someone who specialises in production build and the rest of it.
Yeah, the boats are all now fully infused deck and hull, which makes a huge difference with weight control, and also making sure that we're creating a stable hull. It's just one of those things that they're very good at. It's their level of, it's their focus. They jumped at the chance to do it all in one go, but I was a little bit apprehensive. There's quite a lot of laminate, but they pulled it through beautifully.
Yeah, sort of the way to go. I mean, it's a great way of making sure you do, as you say, have the weight control, isn't it?
Weight control and voids and any form of delam. So, we've done heaps of testing with this boat in terms of just checking it and solid as. Yeah.
And do you expect to sort of, when you take her out for a sail, are you expecting to feel much difference in the boat?
I think we will, because the boat's now floating as to where we actually designed it. We've got about 15 mil overhang on the transom, which is what we wanted. The other boats were slightly, or just touching on the transom. On top of that, because we've got the infused boat, I feel like we're going to have potentially a stiffer boat, which is going to be a lot more responsive, and for a race boat, we're always after that.
Nigel Colley has long been an advocate for short-handed sailing, and his company Sea Ventures are selling the X2, so he clearly has an interest. But he's also well known for his hands-on approach, clocking up the miles offshore, which makes his views all the more interesting.
Double-handed scene has exploded over the last 3 or 4 years, and it's built up its own gravitas, and it's got its own momentum, and it's got a real keen bunch of followers. But there's still a bubble of people out there who don't want to go all the way to double-handed. They don't want to sail with 10, 11, 12 crew, but they don't want to sail double-handed either, and they're feeling a bit left out. And I see this as being an ideal platform where you can race double-handed, you can race solo, because I'm going to be racing this boat solo, or you can race with a crew of 3, 4, 5 people. year before last, we experimented and we created an event for boats of this sort of size, maximum crew of 4. And what surprised me was that the Sunfast people took it on for the Sunfast Cup and a crew limit of 4. We had our Super Series last year, which was open to all brands, crew limit of 4, and all the double-handers came along 4 up and had a great time.
Yeah.
It was destination racing. We stopped somewhere, have a meal, pub meal, bit of banter, and race home the next day. And it was just putting the fun back into racing. My personal thought process has changed. My preconception was that it was going to be a Grand Prix boat, and it is far from being a Grand Prix boat. It's a semi-custom boat. You can see the way it's fitted out, the quality of the fittings, everything's in the right place. You buy this boat, she's ready to go. Add a set of sails, there's nothing more to do to it. And the people who have actually been buying it have not been the Grand Prix semi-pro racers. They've been more the people who want to sail fast and have fun.
And no doubt you've put an order in for one. You can never help yourself, can you?
I know, I can't. I'm a serial boat buyer, and I sold my previous boat to Sweden. I'm currently boatless, and I've got one of these going into the infusion shop tomorrow.
There you go. See, I've known you long enough to know that you can't be boatless for very long at all. As always, thanks so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to us. It's free and it makes a big difference to what we can do on the channel. Tick the notification bell to stay up to date with new content. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, and of course our website. And if you'd like to advertise, we'd love to hear from you. We've got plenty going on this season and our viewing figures are right up there and climbing, so we know we can get you in front of the right audience. See you next time.